On October 4, 2025, the Defense Headquarters, through its former Director of Defense Information, Brigadier General Tuko Gusau, announced the arrest of some military officers over alleged indiscipline and breach of service regulations. However, there were reports that the officers were arrested in connection with a coup plot. Now, more than 3 months after the military denied the reports of a coup, it has reversed itself with a statement announcing the conclusion of investigations, the submission of findings, and a proposed trial of the officers. The DHQ stated that a comprehensive investigation process was conducted in accordance with established military procedures and carefully examined all circumstances surrounding the conduct of the affected personnel. Accordingly, a number of officers who allegedly participated in the plots to overthrow the government have been identified and will be formally arraigned before appropriate military judicial panel to face trial in accordance with the Armed Forces Act and other applicable service regulations. According to the DHQ, measures being taken are purely disciplinary and part of ongoing institutional mechanisms to preserve order, discipline, and operational effectiveness within the ranks. Since independence, Nigeria has suffered several coups during military and civilian regimes. While some have been successful, many were not, with some foiled at the planning stages. The last coup attempt was purportedly carried out in 1995 during the administration of Sani Abacha, with the plotters sentenced to serve jail terms. Analysts say the alleged coup plot may have gained steam following the recent rise in coup attempts across Africa. Historically, punishment for military coup or attempted coup in Nigeria has involved severe penalties, including court-martial, execution by firing squad for failed attempts, or long-term imprisonment for conspirators. While the death penalty remains in the Nigerian legal system, executions are rare, with few occurring after 2016, despite a significant number of inmates on death row. This is not unconnected with the advancement of democracy and active civil advocacy. With investigations concluded and the military recommending trial before a military judicial panel, Nigerians and the rest of the world will be keen to see how this plays out. Ferdinand Duroha, Arise News.
Indeed, how will all of this play out? Well, joining me now on the Defense Headquarters investigations into alleged misconduct by some officers over claims of a plot to overthrow the government of President Bola Tinubu. I have Frank Tietie. He's a Rise News analyst and also a human rights and development lawyer. As a former founder, executive director at Citizens Advocacy for Social and Economic Rights. That's quite a mouthful. Yeah. You're wearing so many caps here tonight.
I'm always busy.
And you're always busy. You have a lot on your plate. Good to have you on Newsnight tonight. So now that the DHQ has handed over this alleged coup plot report to the president, what next, really? Recall that initially there was that denial that there was, that no such attempt actually happened. Now that we have the DHQ that submitted this,
well, it depends on. First, I am very happy with whichever intelligence agency that actually uncovered the coup plot, the attempted coup plot, before it actually matured. So it didn't matter whether the defense headquarters was not in the picture at the time, so long as it was able to gather the intelligence and they supplied it, and then it was analyzed, and then it has taken 3 months to be investigated to now before submitting the report. Not only to the president, but in his capacity as Commander-in-Chief
of the Armed Forces.
So exactly. it's something commendable because this is a hard-fought and won democracy. It's not. It may be wobbling, it may be difficult, but it doesn't have an alternative. We've lived through the days of military coup, and these persons who have been accused of plotting to attempt to a coup.
16 of them
should be very,
from captain to brigadier general.
Should be very thankful that this is happening under a democracy. You asked the question as to what next. The point is that this report, I believe, will be submitted further to the review of the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation. investigation to actually see whether the elements contained in the report support what can be termed as an attempted coup, or which can be tried as treasonable felony, or that amounts to treason in the extreme sense. So it's not conclusive yet until the president does the analysis and with the advice of the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation. But but we must not forget the seriousness of the accusation, of the allegation. Coup to overthrow a democratically elected president in Nigeria. It's not only unacceptable, it's one of the worst offenses, in fact the worst offense in Nigeria as we speak, because Nigeria is still a retentionist country and reserves that for treason to be a punishment of death, either by hanging. I don't want to talk about firing squad, those were very gruesome days
which
in our
used
history.
to be the case under military
yes.
administrations. Well, when we say coup, are we not giving it the wrong nomenclature really? Because according to the DHQ, they are saying, they've tagged this indiscipline and breach of service regulations.
Yes, this question is very important, because when you say coup, we automatically raise the elements of Section 37 of the Criminal Code. That is, this is kind of a treason. You're trying to overthrow the government of Nigeria by force. But when you keep mentioning, the Armed Forces Act, which does not have the power. The armed forces in Nigeria do not have the power to accuse any of the service officers of treason or plotting. Yes, they can. They may be able to, raise allegations of mutiny, but they cannot. And that's why there is something technical about submitting the report to the president, because the armed forces know that the Armed Forces Act does not grant jurisdiction to the armed forces itself to try any of the service officers for attempts of or a coup for that matter. So when it does mean, therefore, that probably this may just be mutiny or inciting to mutiny, so we should really be careful when we use these terms, because you actually send very shock waves into the polity when you say coup. And again, do not forget that we're in a democracy. These are unlike the days where the Armed Forces Ruling Council or the Supreme Military Council, holds sway as the highest decision-making body in Nigeria, where you just have a court-martial make a decision, and then in some cases, some officers framed for coup and all that, and then once the man who was said to be the target of the coup presides over an approval meetings, and then no, in a democracy, if you actually are alleging a coup, then expect that we are not going to a court martial, but we'll go to the Federal High Court, or in that case, meaning that it will go through the whole appellate process of the Nigerian judicial system, before we eventually say these persons will face one punishment or the other. And do not also think, like the Ferdinand rightly reported, there is an unofficial moratorium on the death penalty in Nigeria. So why charge the whole element?
Let's even dwell on that a little. What exactly is the status of the death penalty in Nigeria?
The death penalty is old school in quote, because of the massive work that civil rights activists like me and others across the world have done. Because it's barbaric. It doesn't really solve the problem. It traumatizes the entire polity. I lived through the days of the firing squad, and they only serve to increase armed robbery. And serve to actually cheapen life. Modern societies find a way to preserve life, find a way to reform life, find a way to improve life, and not descend into the barbarity of taking life. Do not also forget that we have moved as a democracy, because this will be, I believe, the second time there will be an allegation of a coup attempt at the government under a democracy. The first time was against Awolowo and his friends like Church and Antonio Nahoro. And the government of Balewa was very careful to avoid the words like coup and treason, treasonable felony. Yes, because they didn't necessarily want to charge the polity. And I think that this current administration may take a cue. And they take.
Do you think this government is handling this well?
I think so, because you find that there is no rush, as we would have had it in the days of the military. Once there is a signal or the rumor or the framework of a coup, actions, health rule and all that. But in this case, it's taking 3 whole months for investigation, and then you can see the supremacy of the civilian authority in this case. I mean, the president, who is commander-in-chief, they couldn't do anything as armed forces or services, but they submitted the report to the president.
I know we have to wrap this up in 30 seconds. Reports about the poor state of this 16 officers in detention.
It's very sad. And don't forget, they are Nigerian officers, they are Nigerian citizens, and they are officers of the Nigerian army. And these are just allegations. They still enjoy the right to be presumed to be innocent. And I heard Femi Falana crying that, look, you better charge them to court immediately. You can't keep them in detention perpetually. So they are Nigerian citizens, and we must accord them the rights. We are an evolving society that evolves to become better, that respects the rights of people. But in no way should we condone any attempt to take out this a democratically elected president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. No matter how bad things are, we will wumble and stumble into better times as a country.
Yes, you cannot overstress that point. Thank you very much, Frank Tietie, for joining us on Newsnight.
My pleasure.